All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Today, we're going to talk about the Yoke after having it for about 3 months. How does the Yoke feel? Have I gotten used to it? What about the buttons? They've made some updates to the buttons in the software. We're going to talk about all of that right now. All right, so we're talking about the Yoke, what it's like. We're about 3 months into using it, and I go back and forth between the Yoke and the wheel, the S and the X, and then just being able to experience the difference in the two. And quite frankly, the more I drive it, the more I'm getting used to it. I'll put that out up front. The more I drive it, the more I'm getting used to it. And I said this from the beginning, I think Tesla does a good job of giving us things we didn't think we'd know we'd want. And I think this Yoke is a very good option for driving this car in certain conditions. There are other conditions where it's not so great and the wheel still proves superior, but for the majority of the cases that I drive, this Yoke is quite handy, quite comfortable, especially on highway driving, especially when you're just doing mild lane changes, things like that, going around bends, driving spiritedly. This feels like the right solution for this amount of power in the Plaid. And it just feels like the right solution for just, a Model S in general, even if you don't have the Plaid version of it, just to really feel like you're controlling the car. Obviously, best case scenario, they could have used a steer-by-wire system with assisted system and an updated ratio of steering so that the slightest movement would have moved a lot, and it could have been variable. So it could have been a scenario where when you go to highway speeds, the slightest movement doesn't move a lot. But when you go to lower speeds, driving, parking, 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, then the slightest movement goes a long way. And then you only have to travel this far to make a complete turn or wheel lock as opposed to going the full double turn. Okay. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. I'm getting quite used to it, getting quite used to using it. And I wanted to just show you a quick demo of, what it's like to use and how you can use it and get used to it. Again, using the guide that I sent out. We had another video. We talked about the guide and different ways to hold it. Everyone's going to have their preference, but if you adhere to that and you sort of unlearn the concept of a steering wheel and having the parts at the top, I think it becomes a lot easier. And then you're reminded that, hey, when this turns, it's rectangular. It's rectangular, not circle. So when you turn, you have to do certain maneuvers. So let's take it out for a little bit of a drive and see what that looks like in practice, just being able to maneuver with it in emergency situations, right? So I'm backing out of a parking spot here, no problem. I have enough practice so I can use one hand to do it. Swipe up, go forward, then I turn left, then I turn right, go straight, quick right, quick left. Now I have it in sport. I have it in sport. If I put it in standard, it might be a little easier, faster for me to turn the wheel, but sport works just fine. Turn left. Okay. That's the biggest issue right here, is just being able to have the wheel travel back when you go straight after a turn, which is typically what a regular wheel does, and you let it glide in your hands. This one, you have to kind of let it go. A good example here. I'll turn right, turn left, and then you let it go, and then you re-engage, as opposed to having your hand on it, because otherwise you're going to try to turn, and when you want to go straight, you're going to try to let it glide, and your hand misses it, right? So that's really what it comes down to, and that's really the biggest hurdle that you might have to get used to, is just the concept of the wheel returning after it driving one direction, right? So whatever it is, left or right, the wheel returns, then you grab it again, and then you go from there, right? Turn here, pull into a parking spot, boom, back up, boom, go drive, boom, go this way, no problem. Yes, I could absolutely do that way faster with a wheel, but this is comfortable for a majority of the scenarios, right? I'm not parking all the time. I'm not doing these quick maneuvers all the time. And the majority of the time, I'm on highways. I'm on straight roads. I'm on winding roads or bending roads that don't require this much travel of the wheel. So it doesn't really bother me that I can do it a lot quicker with the steering wheel. And let's just go on the course just to make sure we're safe here. Turn left. Back up into the space. Can do that pretty well. Stop. Oh, I want to go to another space. Let me go that one. this way. Now the buttons, on the other hand, are a different story. They actually changed them. They're a lot more usable now, a lot more comfortable being right by your fingertips. I took that for granted initially. I thought that we needed a stalk, but the issue is still that if you're in a mid-turn and you need to go a different direction. This spot is open, but no, maybe this spot is open. I can't travel. I can't turn back. I can't have the turn signal. As you see here, I can't turn right now or signal right in the midst of doing that. Now, it's not a common scenario, but it does happen. It does happen where someone has to make an abrupt maneuver. And in those instances, that's where the yoke becomes problematic with the buttons on it. Everything else they fixed to the point where it's actually not even an issue. Lights are not an issue. Wipers are not an issue anymore. The horn still is an issue. That's the biggest gripe about it. The horn is definitely still an issue. In an emergency situation, I have to stop abruptly. Oops, I need to beep the horn. I need to beep the horn. I can't do that, right? Instead, as I'm driving, let's say I'm driving and someone's backing out of this spot right here and I have to stop. Oh, wait, I have to like hunt and look to press here. And sometimes I've pressed here, right here, and it doesn't do anything because I think my muscle memory tells me it's right there and it's not. Right? So I have to really press a very specific point, and that is a problem. That is still a problem. I think that's a dangerous situation where you can't signal. I find myself coming to several situations where someone's jumped out in front of me and I just have to brake. I can't do anything. I can't warn them. I can't alert them because I'm not pressing the button in time. It's too small of a target. It needs to be a bigger target, I think. I think that's the problem there. All right, when you also think about this autopilot indicator, maybe this should go on the bottom. If it's just an indicator, it needs to go on the bottom instead of the top. And instead, make the horn button a little bigger, or make the receipt of the horn button. Maybe it's the visual is here, but you could press here as well, and that could be the horn. I think that might be a good solution. Again, if this does nothing, it's just an indicator, maybe it makes sense to just put the horn functionality over here as well. So it indicates me that its autopilot is there, but also gives me the ability to press here by accident and still press the horn button. That might be a good solution for Tesla, right? So otherwise, again, the yoke itself, just driving with it is pretty good. Again, where your hands rest, where your elbows rest are all good things. They're all good ways to feel comfortable while you drive, and makes driving a lot easier. I feel like I'm driving the future. I really do feel like I'm driving the future. And when I actually drive the car with the wheel, it feels a little bit outdated. It feels like, you know what? Something's happening here, and it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't give me the same sense of driving the future. And it also feels a little bit awkward because the wheel is just feels so big in comparison to this yoke. Yoke seems wider, but also smaller as a form factor. The wheel seems a lot bigger, and you start to feel that when you go back and forth between the two, right? And again, you also miss those buttons being available to you with the stalk. So if you're driving, if you go back to driving like this, your hand still has to come up and hit the stalk up or down to go somewhere. But when you drive with the yoke, you're more inclined to put both hands on the wheel, or at least be left hand biased so that if you need to make a turn, it's really just the press of a thumb. And I appreciate that. I got used to that really quickly, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Would I buy the wheel if there was an option for the wheel? Probably not, now that I've gotten used to it. But I definitely would have thought that if I just tried the yoke for the first time and they had a wheel option, I could decide at that point. But after having it, which is why I think they didn't include an option for the wheel, after having it for a while, now I get used to it, and now I feel like, well, they're giving me something I didn't know I needed or didn't know I wanted. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the yoke. That's really what it is. It's gotten better over time. It gets more comfortable. You feel like you're driving the future. You feel like this is the right solution for this amount of power for the Plaid. And then again, even in corners, when I take corners, it's not that big of a deal. If I'm doing a racetrack circuit, if I'm like trying to beat a time, yes, a wheel would be preferable. And that's why you see people like Randy Popes and the team over at Unplugged Performance swapping out the yoke for a wheel to do the Pikes Peak hill run. Because obviously you're on a track, you're trying to beat a time, you want to be as concise as possible. And the wheel is still very concise in terms of being able to maneuver small maneuvers, fast maneuvers, going around turns as quickly as possible without the travel of the yoke. Again, the angular nature, maybe hit your knees, maybe it comes down a little further, it makes it harder to grip at certain angles. But from here to here, which is a majority of the driving, top notch, right? Even when you think about autopilot, that's the only hiccup, right? When it actually turns, when you're actually driving on autopilot / full self-driving, when the car turns, you have to really let go of the yoke, because it's going to disengage. Because if you hold it and it turns all the way here, you can't hold on that much. It's not designed for that. When you have a wheel, you can sort of let it glide through your hands. When you have your yoke, it doesn't glide through your hands because this is the hand that you're holding with. And if it turns this way, you have nothing to hold on to. So you're no longer holding the wheel or the yoke. If you go this way and you're holding on, it's hard to keep a hold here because this nature is not round, it's square, and it causes you to disengage. I've disengaged several times. So that's really the only issue with the yoke. Again, sort of, not 50-50, but more like 80-20. Right? 80% good, 20% bad, or not so good, or not so useful in this case. All right. So that's my thoughts on the yoke. Buttons have gotten a lot better. We talked about that. Obviously, if they could use and leverage this indicator as a button for the horn, that would make it a lot easier. Still not as good as putting it here. I don't know what they need to do to put it here, but maybe future Model S's will be able to have it there. Otherwise, the yoke is for me. I'm totally down for the yoke. Totally used to using it. And look forward to future updates that may add more functionality. All right, let me know your thoughts on the yoke if you have it, if you've gotten used to it, if you're gonna get it, what you do to practice and train for it, and how comfortable you are if you've already had it. If you don't like it, what are the options? I've seen people swap out the yoke for a Model 3 steering wheel and stalk. If that works for you, that's great. But I think the yoke is a pretty elegant solution. I think that's going to be the future of where Tesla's going to be going. If you look at their future cars, the Roadster, the Cybertruck, etc. And so hopefully they'll be able to learn from the Model S and make it even better over time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Until the next time, enjoy your day, enjoy your Tesla, enjoy your yoke.